Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I'm going to be doing my wrap-up for the month of August. I do want to show y'all what my bullet journal looked like for this month because I'm really proud of the spreads. I took a lot of time to do them and I'm trying to be more artistic. I'm starting by using like reference photos that other people have done and then just replicating it because I don't have the natural skill to like picture it in my head and then execute it. So I want to learn by just doing at first. So that's what this is. I went with the bird theme, so every spread has a different like type of bird on it or some sort of bird illustration that I've replicated. And that was because I was supposed to be writing a book that had to do with birds, but I didn't really do any writing. So, oops. But here it is. If I sound off, it is because I have the you-know-what that nobody wants to get. And, yeah, it's definitely taking a toll. I'm, like, sweating right now. But we're going to do this anyway. Here are my stats for the month, so you can pause the screen and read all the stats if you're interested in that sort of thing. I have been updating the graphs that I made. So at the end of the year, I will do a yearly stat so you can see the breakdown exactly. It was my lowest reading month of the year. My other lowest reading month was March, where I was working 2 jobs and I was moving. So that's got to tell you something. Here is my page where I put down when I read the books. So I put down the title and then I color in the square by the date. And then when I finished the book, I put a dot. So there was 3 books that I did not finish, so they did not get dots. So one of the reasons why it was my slowest reading month this year was because I was doing an experiment. I felt like I had been reading too many books each month. I read 28 books the previous month, and it was just a lot. And I was noticing I was stopping enjoying a lot of the stuff that I was reading in pursuit of just finishing them so that I could get to the next book. So I was determined to learn how to DNF if I didn't like something. And also to see if focusing on only like one book of each format at a time and not allowing myself to have any breaks, so meaning that there's no gaps in the days, see if that would be a more efficient way of reading and also a better way to enjoy the stories and a way to force myself to kind of slow down. So it did force myself to slow down. I don't really think that it necessarily increased my enjoyment because sometimes I just didn't want to read the books that I had. And I don't think that that's the way that my brain operates. I just didn't care for it. So it was an experiment that was worth it to do for 1 month just to see how I would feel about it. Because, you know, the efficient way, I guess technically, would be to start one book and just read that one book until you're done. I knew I couldn't do that. That's why I had like one of each format. And I also reduced the amount of audiobooks that I was listening to. So I only listened to 2, which meant that there were several days where I did not have any audio that I was listening to. The last day that I listened to audio, oh wait, no, never mind. I had like a week and a half gap, and then I started another audio, which I wound up DNFing. But anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. And then I have my spread that has all of the pages that I read for each book. So I have the total number of book pages at the end of the bar. If I started the book in a previous month, then I usually put like minus so many pages, and then I start the bar graph from where I'm at. And then I have the actual amount that I read for the month on the end here. So that's what this is. I did the Aurelium readathon, so I was going for Archmage. So here was the books prompts that I did. And I also read like 2 other books, so I was able to fulfill some quests as well. So that was really fun. And then here are all the books that I read for the month. So I'm going to be talking about these in order. I will have timestamps down below if I have the energy to do it, which I probably will. Just means you might get this video later because, again, I've got the you-know-what, and I'm just like, I do what I can when I can, and then I just try to relax. Anyway, we're going to try to make this brief. So the first book was The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I gave this 2 stars, and I DNF'd the series after finishing this one. They are like 26-hour long audiobooks, so even if you were to put it on 3-speed, which I don't, there are very few books where I will put it on 3-speed, where like the narrator just has the perfect voice, where it's still perfectly clear and I can totally comprehend at 3-speed. But yeah, I was like, this is too much time, considering I'm not really enjoying the series anymore. I don't feel like the characters have developed any. They're learning new things about themselves, but I'm at a place where I just don't care. I liked the first book. I liked the romantic tension. I liked the plot. I liked the high stakes. All of that stuff was really awesome. I don't care about the second and third book. I feel like I could if they had been combined and were like a 350-page book, not 1,200 pages for the amount of information that we got within them. So I'm done with the series. I think a lot of people made that decision after reading The Crown of Gilded Bones, because I remember it was on a lot of people's like most hated book of the year last year. So I'm in good company. There's 3 more books left in the series, and only one of them is currently out, so I feel like it's a good time to quit. Hopefully my best friend who bought the series after I recommended the first book enjoys the rest of the series, but I didn't, so that's all I can really tell you. It is book 3. I don't really want to do any spoilers. I didn't care about it. And then Ready Player 2, a book that I don't feel like needed to exist. Again, something I feel like a lot of people agreed with. If you did not like all of the pop culture references that were in book 1 and just how dense it was, like 75% narrative versus maybe 25% dialogue, then you're not going to like Ready Player 2. I feel like what you could almost do is read like the first paragraph or 2 of each chapter and then just read the dialogue, and you're not going to miss anything. There was, I think, like maybe 2 or 3 chapters where I did that. I read narrative every once in a while, and I'd skip all of the 80s references because I was not around in the 80s, and I just didn't care. And so I would just go to the dialogue, and then stuff would get more interesting, and I could get through it more. I have never done that with a book except for with required reading in high school and college. So that tells you I really did not enjoy this book. It took too long, and there wasn't enough interesting that was happening. I needed more dialogue. I needed more feeling. The stakes were high, and I really still liked Artemis. Artemis is like my favorite character. I think that she's very pragmatic, which also didn't really make sense at the end when she's just kind of like, oh yeah, I guess y'all were right. And I'm like, what? And then there was this whole thing about basically they were considering AI copies of yourself to be the true you, and therefore if you had an AI copy of yourself, you were immortal. And I'm like, but it's not really you. You're still gonna die. So I was just kind of laughing at the whole concept. And they did build a spaceship. And they were like, if the world goes to crap, we can just escape on the spaceship. And they were doing some things to kind of help the world, but only Artemis was the one who kind of was on the ground trying to help people. They were all just kind of throwing money at it, at the problems that they saw. But yeah, it was interesting enough to where I feel like if there is a movie adaptation, that would be really fun to watch. And I think that that's kind of how the author wrote it, was in a way to be more cinematic, but I don't feel like it worked as well in a book format. So yeah, I don't recommend the book. The third book that I read was Places We've Never Been, which was also an audiobook. This was by Kasie West. Really enjoyed this one, 5 stars. If you like friends to lovers, or almost like a second chance feel, because they were friends and then the guy moved to like a different state, they lost contact, and then the parents decide they're going to go on this road trip to take the girl to an interview at a college that she's wanting to get into. She is a gamer girl, which is awesome because I don't see that much in books. And you can definitely see how that part of her personality was layered throughout the story, the way that she would see things as if they could be games. Just kind of the way that if you read a book about an artist, the way that they view the world is slightly different than everybody else. And I feel like if Kasie West hadn't have took the effort in order to do that and show how like her thinking was a little different as someone who loves gaming, it would seem kind of like a not like other girls throw in, where it was just trying to make her like unique and quirky without actually doing the work to show like how she is. But Kasie West made the effort, and so I really enjoyed it, and it was awesome. There was a little bit of a miscommunication that kind of started the angst at the beginning of the story, but I love the way that it turned out. It wasn't like the climax where there was the miscommunication. It was like the first day of them seeing each other again, miscommunication. So it helped for the tension rather than just kind of taking away all of the character development that romantic pairs have before they get their happy ever ending. So it's the kind of miscommunication trope that I actually enjoy because it drives the plot, because you want to know what in the world went wrong. Is this really how things are? I need to know. So they're on this road trip. There is trigger warning for, I would say, I don't really want, it's a trigger warning, but it's also a spoiler. But it has to do with sickness. We'll just keep it blanket statement. It is not between the two main characters, so hopefully that will help you if you need to know that, but I don't really want to give you any more. You'll have to go on Goodreads and look at people's spoiler reviews if you want to know what the specific trigger is, because I want you to be able to kind of figure it out. I figured it out early on, but I tend to do that because I'm a writer, so I know how writers think. But it was still very, very interesting. Also, the guy is very artsy, and she's also artsy because she wants to design games. So there's bonding over that. I also really like the sibling relationships that were in the story. There's also a best friend. There's some drama that has to go on with the side characters. So I just liked how it was more than just a road trip. And yeah. So the next book is The Husbands. I did like an hour-long reading vlog / rant about the ending of the story. By the way, I gave Places We've Never Been 5 stars. The Husbands, I gave 4 stars. I was kind of iffy on what I wanted to give this book because a lot of it was a 5-star read, but I did not like the ending. So if you want to know more about that story, you should probably just go check it out. But I will just kind of tell you a little bit about what the book is about itself. So there's this community where all of the women are very productive members of society. They have these high-end coveted jobs and positions. And the men are like stay-at-home dads. And they kind of like wait on the women hand and foot. And they're just like, oh, you work so hard. It's the male version of Stepford Wives without robots. I enjoyed that aspect because it is a flip-flop of how things typically are. There's so many expectations on women to be able to do it all or to stay at home and not be in the workforce, even if they want to be in the workforce. But yeah, it was interesting. It was very interesting. I didn't know if there was going to be a paranormal element to it. I would say it's kind of... There's not a magical element, but it's not necessarily a factual element. I would kind of describe it like a sci-fi, but in the realm of how Adam Silvera does sci-fi. So the stories have a very, like, contemporary feel, and then it just has, like, this little bitty thing that's sci-fi-ish, or I guess you would say, like, psychological thriller. You know what? That one book the Nine Strangers or whatever it was called. That it has that feel where those people were all put together and then she was drugging them. She was drugging them to have them make these breakthroughs. That's not what's happening in this one, but it's that sort of feel. So if you're interested in that, golly, then The Husbands would be one to try out. But again, I have a blog for that. The next one is The Kicks Hat Tricks. This one I gave 5 stars. It is a middle grades read, I think about 6th graders on a soccer team. This is one that there is going to be a vlog for coming up. So, spoiler, Library Lotto number 2. So I will definitely be talking about that book there. But basically, she is missing soccer, so she gets on this winter soccer league, and it's way more competitive. So there's some bullying going on. There's like moments where she's benched, and she's used to being the captain of her soccer team. So it just feels very off to her. It's a lot different than what she's used to. And it's kind of like, do you love the sport? Or do you just want to be a number 1? And then there's some friendship struggles that happen in the story, which I thought were really good. It did not dumb anything down. Like, I know a lot of people will criticize it if you're not in the age group. Reading a book that's well below your age group, you can read it and be like, this kind of comes off as super juvenile, because it's meant for the targeted audience and it's done in a way that they'll enjoy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this one is one that I would applaud for being one that you could be 50 years old and read it, and I feel like you would still enjoy it. The language is perfect. It's perfect. They're not like running around making fart jokes. It's really good. So I feel like if you're an adult and you want to read like a middle grades book, then it's definitely a series to start with. Also, the author was like a world champion and Olympic soccer player who wrote it. So the soccer stuff is really good too. But I'm not going to really tell you anything more about that because I'm going to have a vlog. Then I have After the New Gen Z. This is an indie book. I gave it 5 stars. The author had a sale at one point, and she was in one of the same promotion groups that I'm in, and she had commented that her books were on sale. I like zombie books, and they were like 200 pagers, so I bought them all. And so I read the first one, and it was amazing. So if you like zombie books, you should definitely try that one out. There is a little bit of a romance in it as well. There is like government agencies that have lied to the people and told them that the zombie crisis is over, and they have contained any remaining zombies in like the wastelands, and it's not true. It's not true. The scientists, they are the reason for the zombies. So in the second book, which is the one I'm currently reading, that I also had started reading in this one, that book shows you how the zombie apocalypse came about. And it also has the father of the main girl that's in the first book as a young adult. So he's like 19 years old in the story. So you get to see what's going on. Because the cliffhanger at the end of the first book, oh my gosh, you're like, what in the world? So I will tell you a little bit about the first book, but I'm not really going to spoil anything more than what I already told you about, like the scientists are behind it. So with the first book, they're like in this quarantined kind of like safe community. And so these like government agents for this pharmaceutical company, they come and they are like, we're taking you away. We need to know where your father is, because the father is the one that had like had the cure for the zombie infection. And So they're trying to find him. She's like, my father died by suicide. Like, I don't, like, your people came and, like, took him away in a body bag. I don't know why you think he's still alive. But they take her anyway, and they take her into this facility. And that's where she meets the guy who was her father's assistant. He is a young genius. So he's, like, 3 years older than her. They always butted heads when she was younger because he just viewed her as, like, this immature little kid because he's literally a genius. So he's working with these older people. And so they have him trying to figure out the, like, molecular coding of this formula that he had helped the dad create, but part of the formula is missing. They will use any means to get him to comply, including breaking his legs, getting him addicted to drugs so that he can stay up all night and work on it, shackling his feet so that he can't get up from the chair and he has to continue working, all sorts of things. And then when she gets there, of course, they are manipulating her in certain ways. And then she is constantly trying to find a way to escape. And then she learns more information about the company and starts to wonder if maybe they're right and her dad is still alive. So that's what the first book is about. And the second book just kind of goes back in time. I was like, I don't want it to go back in time. I want to get to the third book. Where it picks up exactly where the first one went off. But I think that the author did this intentionally because the cliffhanger at the end of the first book, you have to know the motives behind this character who wound up not being who we thought that they were. And I think that we'll find out the motives in the first book so that you can understand, and that's going to up the stakes even more. So super interested in getting to do that soon. Then we have the Ex Hex, which I gave 5 stars. I not only just love the writing style of this author, it is Rachel Hawkins, but she's writing under the name, I believe, Erin Sterling. And yeah, I really like it. It's paranormal. It is about this girl who was kind of having this like summer fling with this well-known witch from Wales. And she hexes him because she finds out. Well, I don't want to tell you because it might be a little bit of a spoiler. I can't remember exactly when we find out this information. You know what? I think we find out in chapter 1. So it's fine. We find out that he had told his dad that he could basically arrange a marriage for him with some well-known witch. And she didn't know that. So when she finds out that he had allowed this and he didn't tell her that he was basically betrothed when they were having their fling, she's angry. So they break up and then she drunkenly hexes him. 9 years later, he has to come back to the same town that she's currently living in, and she's also working as a history professor at the same college that he comes back to recharge the ley lines that his family had kind of like set. And once he enters the town, he's cursed. So things start to go wrong. Inanimate objects are suddenly animate. And, you know, just like everything that could go wrong goes wrong. There's like a ghost mystery in this story. It's just so cute. If you like kind of a cozier feel to your paranormal romances, then I think this would definitely be one. It is an enemies to lovers / second chance romance. Really enjoyed the two of them. I liked the tension. I didn't know how long it would be before we would get to see stuff with them, but it happened right on time. I took a lot of notes for the Ex Hex too, and I will say that she did such a good job with the magical system itself. There was every character used their magic in ways that not only served the plot, but also in personal ways that benefited them outside of the storyline, which I thought was just awesome. So for instance, our main character, she doesn't really use magic very often because She didn't know she was a witch until after her parents passed and she moved in with her aunt and her cousin, who are witches as well. She's a professor, so she uses this spell on the papers that her students turn in, and it's like an anti-cheating spell, so the words kind of like jump off the page in like red ink if the person cheated. And so she just puts zeros on their papers without having to run it through any systems. And I'm like, that's just such like a simple form of magic that she can use in like the ordinary way. Like ordinary world person would want that hack. So I like the way that she shows like how these people that kind of live ordinary lives for the most part use their magic, and then the ways that magic goes wrong. So yeah, I just really like the magic system. I liked the romance, and I really liked the cousin Gwen. Gwen was so funny. So I'm excited that the second book, The Kiss Curse, which is coming out next month, is going to feature Gwen as one of the main characters. And her love interest is going to be Wells, which is kind of like the brooding, no personality, oldest brother of the guy that was the love interest in the first book. So I'm excited for that. And I think you will like the Ex Hex if you give it a try. Then we have, 5-star for that. And 5-star for the... All of these that I'm talking about now are 5 stars. Alright? So, anyway. Stranger with My Face by Louise Duncan. Louise Duncan is probably what I would consider to be my all-time favorite author. I've been reading her since I was in 6th grade. I'm 30. So, I'm 32. And I started reading her probably when I was like 12. Like, I know I was reading her at 12. I might have started a little bit earlier than that. So you're talking about 20 years. I've consistently liked everything that this author has written that I've read. She is no longer with us. She's passed, which is very sad, but she did write like 200 books. So I've got a pretty good backlist I could read through. Everything from Hotel for Dogs that became a movie to I Know What You Did Last Summer. She's very prolific, very wide range of stuff. In particular, the things that I read from her were her young adult suspense, like horror thriller, slight paranormal or magical realism edge to her stories. Those are the ones that I like the most. I have like a whole little shelf over here of her books. And the only one that I owned that I hadn't read was Stranger with My Face, which I actually initially started, I believe, in the 6th grade. And then I moved, so I didn't finish it. So I finally finished it 20 years later. And I really enjoyed it. So this one has to do with astral projection. And so the girl is dating this guy. She's finally kind of become popular. She lives on this island. Her parents are like famous. One of them's an artist. One of them's a writer. And so her life is kind of finally how she wants it to be. She gets sick on the night of her new friend's like major birthday party bash, whatever. And so she can't come. On that same night, her boyfriend is down on the beach with said friend. Red flag! And he sees her there talking to another guy. So then he thinks that she ditched the party to cheat on him with this other guy. And then she's like, well, you were out there with so-and-so. And he admits that he had been kissing the other friend while they were still dating because he was mad that she bailed on the party. And then he saw her out there with some other guy, but it wasn't her. It wasn't her. It just was someone who looked like her. And so she's trying to convince everyone that, like, it wasn't her, but nobody believes her. And then even her siblings start to see this person that looks like her. And it's like, what's going on? Like, do I have some mystery twin? Like, how would I not know about this? Like, I don't think I have anyone that looks like me, so how is this happening? And so that's the mystery of the book, is not only finding out how it's happening, but then when she finds out what's happening, what is she going to do about it? So, really, really enjoy Stranger with My Face. It does have a romance in there. So you get the initial romance where you're just seeing all these little bitty red flags. And then you get a romance you can really root for. So, I mean, yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. I read the Q&A at the end of the book, which apparently Jenny Han is also like a huge Louise Duncan fan. And so she was doing the interview and she was like, this is my favorite book of yours. And they were talking about the love interest. And I don't like what Louise Duncan said about the future of these two people. I was like, I'm just going to pretend I'm the author and I'm going to have it my way. But anyway, moving on. I'm going to talk about the next two in tandem because they're part of a series. That is Spy X Family, Volume 1 and 2. This currently has a Netflix adaptation for it. It is not dubbed, so you have to read subtitles if you want to watch it, or if you have like a Crunchyroll subscription or whatever, then they do have an English dubbed version on there, but you have to pay for that. So I am going to wait until I've read at least enough volumes to not spoil myself with the show. And I'll have to do it when I can like concentrate and read the subtitles, but I'll also have a better idea of what's going on after reading the story. I did watch the preview and the character art matches up perfectly. And also, I couldn't even read the subtitles because they were way too fast on the show preview, but I knew exactly what was going on from the imagery because I had read the first two volumes. So yeah, already really excited about getting to watch the show soon. My husband's already watched the show. He was the one that was like, I think you'll like it. And when I told him that one of the prompts on here that I needed to do was to read a graphic novel, I didn't have any at home. And I was like, if you have a manga or something, because he has a big stash of one manga, I can't even remember what it's called. He's got like 30 volumes or something. So he looked in the garage, couldn't find it, and then he was like, why don't you go on this manga app, and you can read the Spy X Family. So I did. It was there. I was so happy. So I read both of those volumes, and I do plan on continuing the series. I don't know exactly when I'm going to continue, but I do want to continue. There's not that many manga series that I have read. I did like the Water Dragon one or whatever that I had, Bride of the Water Dragon, I think that's what it was called, that I read last year. There was like 11 volumes. And this is like going to be my new favorite. So I'm definitely going to finish it at some point. But anyway, those are all of the books that I read that I finished. But I also want to talk about the ones that I did not finish. So, I already told you about before the zombie one. So don't really need to mention that. I'm definitely going to be finishing that this month. The second one is Sanctuary, which is like a sci-fi. It's set on a space station, and it's has definite the 100 vibes, but it's all on the space station. But there's several levels of like teenagers who are criminals, and then the main character is a girl who's one of the guards, and there's a little bit of romance, and there's like this alien type thing that happens. It's so good. And so I'm really excited to talk to y'all about that story when I'm done with it, but it's like 400 pages. I'm currently like halfway through, so really excited about that one. And then the third one, and the last one that I had started that I did not finish, was Spinning Silver. I got pretty far into the story. I think I was like 45 to 50% done with the book, something like that, and I DNF'd. I DNF'd. 5-star execution on the beginning of the story. As soon as the magical element started getting introduced with like the Fae person, I was done. I was just like, I don't like it. I liked the character development, with the two girls that had the POVs. I did not like when they introduced the Duke's daughter. Didn't care. Didn't care about Irina's point of view at all. I just did not care. I don't think that she was needed. And then both of the girls, I thought that they had such strong, good personalities, and I liked the way that there was like this uneven power dynamic, but also you get to see the perspective of the person who's on the lower end, and you're like, they're really doing this person a big favor, even though they're kind of turning them into an indentured servant. Not even kind of, like they're literally an indentured servant trying to pay off their father's debt. But the father is super physically abusive and like emotionally abusive, so her being like, yeah, come work for me on my farm and you'll help pay off your father's debt. It'll take you 4 years. That was like a blessing for the character to be able to get away from the abusive dad. So, I loved it. So, I DNF'd when I got further along because I didn't care about the magical elements. Honestly, I was rooting for a female-female relationship between the two main characters. Was there any display of actual, like, on the page chemistry between them? No, not at all. Did I ship it despite that? Yes. When I find out they both wind up with guys at the end, and they're kind of like Stockholm Syndrome scenarios, I'm like, no, I'm not interested. That was the reason why I could not ship The Wrath of the Dawn, because it had a definite Stockholm Syndrome. I was like, no. Now, it kind of would have been sort of the same with the whole indentured servant thing between the two girls, but because I knew that she was technically doing her a favor, and the girl was very, very happy about being an indentured servant, and she wanted to even extend her thing, and then the girl was giving her more opportunities to kind of become self-sufficient and to be able to take care of herself in the long run once the servitude was over. It didn't feel icky, because it was like, it was the only way that this girl would get out of her bad situation was to have to be like this indentured servant. But yeah, so I was like, I'm not gonna have the ship that I want. There was still like 250 or 300 pages left of the book, and I was just like, I don't want them with these dudes, and I don't care about any of this magical stuff that's happening. I liked the beginning of the book. And I was like, I'm just gonna let that part of the book live on, and I DNF'd because I don't care about the rest. I watched some spoiler reviews, so I know what happens, because I was interested enough to find out. If there's ever a movie or TV show or something, I would totally watch it and love it, but I just don't want to waste 12 more hours worth of audio, or 6 at a double speed to finish the story. Not worth it. So, I am gonna go. And I'm going to go read, because it's like 25 minutes into Castle Library's reading sprints. So I'm going to go join those. And I will see y'all later. Hopefully when I don't have you-know-what anymore. We'll see. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share with friends. And I will see y'all later. And comment, because I always reply. But unless you're like a troll. Bye!